Hello everyone, I'm Kim and welcome to my sewing room. I hope you're all really well and are looking forward to Christmas. We're only a few days away from the big day now, and I have decided that I really do want to make something nice to wear on Christmas Day. Now, primarily throughout the whole of the year, I am in trousers and shirts, or trousers and jumpers, or trousers and tops. I always wear trousers. Which hasn't always been the case, because when I worked in an office, I was always a dress wearer. I used to wear dresses all the time with skirts. I don't think I even owned a pair of trousers, but I used to wear a lot of dresses, and I like that feeling of just being feminine, and it was really, my dresses really floaty, and I just loved the way they felt on me. But when I went self-employed as a beautician, my uniform turned into a black top and black trousers, and then I found that through the pandemic I then sort of converted to a trouser and top wearer through the pandemic because it was just comfortable. And I haven't come out of that, but I have got some beautiful fabric in my stash, and I have been going through it and I have found some fabric, and I have decided that I want to see whether I can make a dress in time for Christmas. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the Style Arc Patricia Rose dress. And the reason why I'm going to make that dress is because I've made it about 4 times before, and it's not a fitted dress. It fits quite well on the top half of the body, and it's quite floaty, so it floats from the bust line down. And I thought that would be quite a nice dress to make because it's not going to be restrictive around the waist, because obviously when you're eating lots of food and drink, it can be quite a food heavy day, and I just want to look nice but also be comfortable. So I thought on the Patricia Rose dress, because that dress will also look good any other time. So even though it'll be nice to wear something pretty on Christmas Day, it still will be able to be worn any other time of the year. So I found some fabric in my stash. So I found this. Now this is a silk fabric I bought from a company called Atokri, and I don't know whether I've pronounced that right or not, but it is an Indian company and they do block printing. And I bought this absolutely ages and ages ago, and they said this was silk. I think it's probably a combination of silk and cotton because it's got quite a heavy feel about it, but it's got a nice drape. And I think the Patricia Rose dress hasn't got a great deal of detail in it, and which I don't want, because I want this fabric to just sort of fall down and show the pattern off. So I have decided on that. I'm going to pull out the pattern. I'm going to lay it all out on the table and see whether I can get the pattern pieces onto this fabric. The only thing with fabric from this company is because it has been block printed and weaved in India, it is actually quite a narrow fabric. I think it's something like 110 centimeters wide, so it's not a wide piece of fabric. So it'd be interesting to see whether I can get this pattern cut out. So let's see how I get on. Right, so here you can see all the fabric. So I started placing the pattern pieces down, and there's plenty of fabric. There's quite a lot all on the floor. So I know that I've got enough fabric for the pattern. So I'm just going to position it all nicely, pin it, and then start cutting. So I've got all of the fabric now cut out, so I can now start sewing. And as per usual, Style Arc's instructions aren't very detailed, but I have made this several times before. So I've got my project sheets from previous projects to look at. So I've looked at all of that information, and the only change I really made to this pattern was to make it a little bit longer because I'm a bit taller than the average woman. So I've made the change to my fabric, so it's been cut out accordingly. So now I'm going to start sewing. So on the front bodice we have a dart, so I put the dart notches into the fabric, but it also has this fold line here. So what I've done is I have put some basting stitches along to represent that fold line. Because this fabric is silk, it's very slippery, so I need a guideline to help me put the pleat in when it comes to it. So this fold line here is this line here, and there's a little notch here, so I've also put an additional row of stitch in there. I'm not really too sure what that is yet, but I know that when I come to it, I've got everything I need to put a nice pleat in the front. So I've done that, and I've also stitched the darts in and pressed them up as the pattern suggested. The next stage of the pattern says to join the two pieces of interfacing. So these are the only parts of the dress that are actually interfaced. So I've interfaced the front section and the back neck section, and I have also stitched them together. So they are now complete, and the next stage is to stitch the front and backs together, so then I can put the facing into the neckline. So I've pinned the front bodice to the back panel. Because this fabric is silk, it's extremely slippery, so I pinned it with lots of very fine pins at an angle so that they won't slip. And now I'm just going to stitch the shoulder seams. So I stitched the shoulder seams, and this means that I can now put the facing into the neckline. So what I'm going to do initially is I'm going to pin it all, and then I'm going to baste it because it is so slippery. Now I have basted all around the neck, so it's all basted with small stitches to stop the silk from slipping, and I have also marked with an erasable pen 1 centimetre seam allowance, and I just do that because sometimes when it is under the needle you lose the marking on the machine, and I just want this curve to be nice and smooth, so when it's folded through it looks really lovely. So the interfacing has now been stitched, and I've understitched around the inside of the neck facing to ensure that it doesn't roll over, and I've also neatened the edges by overlocking, so that is now finished and it sits nice and flat. So that is the neck facing. So the next bit is press the horizontal tuck to the inside along the fold line. So this is the fold line, so that's what we're going to press. So that's going to be straightforward because I've got my row of stitches there, so I'm just going to press along that row of stitches. Right, so it was really worth putting in that row of stitches because it made it a lot easier to press that tuck under, so that's nice and straight, and you've got the tuck underneath. So the next stage is to actually attach the front bodice, skirt part of the dress to the bodice. Right, you can't see it, but I have stitched, this is the centre marking, and I have stitched 3.5 inches down, so this is just basically going to be used as a guideline. So these two need to now come across and join each other. I'm just using lots of pins to secure that area, and then I'm going to stitch. Right, so that's now stitched down there. So what you have to do now is you have to open it up because it's going to create the pleat. And the previous stitch line that you stitched in the centre, you use it to align and join up the centre of the skirt. Right. Right, so I'm just going to give it a press, and then I'm going to baste along the top. Right, so we now have our skirt finished with its inverted pleat, so it's nicely stitched there and you can see the pleats there and it's basted down. So what we need to do now is we need to attach the bodice and the skirt. So I'm just putting those together. So here's the bodice and the skirt now pinned. I'm going to stitch and overlock. Well, the bodice and the skirt are now attached and overlocked. So you can see from the front that's what it looks like. So you've got your inverted pleat here and you've got this tuck that's been pressed in. So the instructions say that you have to now stitch along this guideline to create a pleat in effect. So that guideline there is this second notch here, so I put this row of stitches in initially, so that will definitely help. And when it is stitched through, so you're stitching through the front and hopefully it will catch the back of that overlocked section which joins both the bodice and the front together. So I decided before stitching it to actually pin it down so it didn't move, so you can see this, the pins in here, and so I'm now going to stitch. So what I've decided to do also, it's not in the instructions, but I've decided where I've got this, the internal facing, I've decided that I want to just secure it to the front bodice stitching because I think it will hold it flat and it won't keep turning out to the front of the garment. So I'm just literally just going to go over that section of stitching again where that interfacing is, and that will be nice and secure and it will lay flat. And I think I'm also going to stitch the facing down into the shoulder seam so don't get any flipping out of the interfacing around the neckline. So this is how I do my pockets. So you can see I've overlocked the edges. So I'm going to first of all put them right sides together. Right, so right sides together. So I originally marked very faintly where the pockets are. So all I'm going to do is stitch down to there, leave an opening for the pocket, and then stitch from there down to the bottom of the dress, and I'm going to do the same for the other side. So you can see the front and the back have been stitched together and they've overlocked, and we've got the opening here for the pocket. So I do my pocket just slightly different. So the way I do my pocket is I bring my pocket, the seam allowance across like that. So I've got the opening there, so you can see the opening, and I have one of my pocket linings here, and I have overlocked all the way around and also on the side, so it's overlocked all the way around, and I have folded over the end of the where the opening will be of the pocket. I have folded that over, and this bit will be stitched onto the seam allowance. So make sure I've got my pocket, so it will just extend slightly above the pocket opening there and slightly below the pocket opening there. So I'm just going to literally pin that, and the pocket, because where this has been ironed, it will have a crease line, so you need to literally put the fold of your pocket there on that crease line. So once you've done that, you take it to a machine and you stitch just the pocket onto that seam allowance. So it's just stitched onto the seam allowance, and it's literally stitched about 2 millimeters in. Okay, so I'm going to do that and you'll see that hopefully a bit better. Right, so the pocket piece has now been attached just to the seam allowance along the crease line, and you can see it's there, it's nicely stitched. So I'm just going to put the second part of the pocket onto the other seam allowance. So turn it around and you just literally pull that seam allowance out, and where it was previously ironed you just put this sleeve piece, which has been folded over and pressed, and you just literally line it up against that crease line and also line it up against the other pocket piece. So you've got it just like that. So once it's in place, you literally just pin it along the crease line. Right, so it's nicely pinned. I'm just going to stitch it like I did the other side, and that is the pocket piece nearly finished. Right, so that's the second half of the pocket piece put in. So you've got your opening here. So all we need to do is just to bring them together, and if you want you can iron the seam allowance flat, but basically what you're aiming to do is to find the seam allowance that you made here. You're just joining it up from here, and you're just going to stitch around the pocket and into the seam and stitch in here, so it just completes that pocket nicely. So the pocket's been finished and all of the raw edges have been neatened previously before putting it in, so it just makes for a tidy pocket. So that's that one done. You just need to do exactly the same on the other side. So the next stage is the sleeves. Now, because I have made a few of these dresses before, I know that even though the instructions say to put some long stitches into the sleeve head, I'm not going to do that because it does fit. You can ease it into the armhole easily without putting those basting stitches in, so I'm not going to bother with that. But I am just going to join the sleeve up to start with, overlock it, and then I'm also going to overlock the bottom of the sleeve as well. So here's the sleeve. I have stitched it and overlocked it. I've also overlocked the bottom of the sleeve and I've pressed it at 1 inch, and I will hand stitch that once I've put the sleeve in. And now I am going to insert it into the dress. Right, I'm just going to stitch the armhole in. Right, my sleeve is now in, so I just do the same to the other side and they're both finished. And the last thing I need to do to the sleeve is I'm going to hand stitch the hem down. So I'm going to hand stitch that, and then I'm going to move on to the bottom hem of the dress. Right, so both sleeves are now in and I have hand stitched the hems down so it gives a nice finish to the front. I've also, remember I was going to stitch this down, I stitched this down and I didn't show you, but you can see it's much neater, and that's not going to flip out to the front of the dress. And we also have our finished pocket, so that's the inside. And last of all, I just put a tiny little label on to because I just like to put a little label on there, a bit of fun. So that is the dress at the moment, and I have overlocked the bottom of the dress and I've checked to make sure it's all even. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to take that up, we'll press it up 1 inch, and then I'm going to hand stitch all the way around. I finished it. I mean, God, I really didn't think I would get this finished because I had so much more that I needed to do. just before Christmas, but because of this pattern and because I have done it a few times before, it just came together really quickly, and this fabric is glorious. It's very silky. It just moves really nice when you're in the dress, and it just has this beautiful luxurious sheen to it. So I'm going to stand up so that you can see the dress in full, and hopefully you'll like it as much as I do. The important thing I think about this pattern is the bodice. So as long as you've got the bodice to fit really well in this section here, everything else falls lovely with it. So the sleeves just sort of drape down, there's no bulk at all anywhere, and then we have this lovely design here, this tuck and an inverted pleat, which gives you some volume into the dress without it making it look bulky. And the nice thing is you've also got your pockets. I do like pockets. So you've got your pockets in, and it's quite floaty, so after I've had my Christmas dinner tomorrow, I won't have to worry about things feeling tight. It's just the perfect dress for Christmas Day. So I'm really pleased with it, and the colour is just amazing together. And I didn't really expect to be posting another video just before Christmas. So it's Christmas Eve now, and it's 6 p.m. for me, and I have been cooking like a demon and making this dress as well, and I can now relax, go downstairs and have a nice cup of tea and just enjoy the rest of my evening before the madness starts tomorrow. So I hope you've enjoyed the content. So have a fabulous Christmas with all of your loved ones, and if you don't celebrate Christmas, enjoy this break, and I will see you all very soon. Take care. Bye.